Thanks for tuning in to As the Tire Turns podcast. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, AME International. Tire professionals insist on AME. I'd also like to recognize the AACF. For over 65 years, the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation has stood by those in the automotive aftermarket industry and their families during life's toughest challenges. Since 1959, with the incredible support of industry partners, AACF has provided vital assistance to individuals and families facing financial hardship due to unforeseen circumstances, such as floods, earthquakes, storms, fires, catastrophic medical conditions, life-changing accidents, devastating fatalities, and more. AACF offers a straightforward application process and a quick turnaround time for those needing support during critical moments. Visit www.aftermarketcharity.org to access the application and learn more about how AACF can assist during times of need. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our automotive aftermarket family. Support AACF today. And now, As the Tire Turns. Okay, we're back with another episode of As the Tire Turns podcast. Today I'm joined with TJ Trum, in-house counsel for Pumps, right? Is that official title or no?
It is, yeah. In-house general legal counsel, and then also added the team leader for risk management and safety to the repertoire of responsibilities.
In all businesses, I guess, right? You wear a lot of hats. So with that, I got to start off with, what's your best lawyer joke?
My best lawyer joke?
Yeah.
Well, it usually involves like 3 different characters, and I don't know. I've kind of tuned the lawyer jokes out. I'm not gonna lie, because the lawyer is always at the short end of the lawyer.
Well, I agree,
right?
but I thought you might have one that maybe resonated with you, but no. Okay.
I'll have to think that through. If that was your zinger, you got me right from the start.
The zinger's the next one. So
we're going uphill, not downhill, huh?
Did you pass the bar the first time?
I did, twice.
Extra credit?
So first, Missouri was the first bar, and then ended up getting a job in Kansas City, and had to pass the Kansas one. More difficult to study twice than the first. You know, the first, there's all that pressure, but yes, I'm proud to say I passed it the first time twice.
And I guess I didn't really think about that, but it is a state bar, right?
It is.
So yeah, how much of the exams pertain to state law versus, or is it? I mean, I'm assuming 80% of the content was the same, roughly, or?
Yeah. So you pretty much take the generalized content, you know, property or contracts, all the major areas. But then there are state-specific applications that they expect you to know, particularly on the essay portion.
Yeah.
The first half, the multiple choice, so to speak, is multi-state.
Yeah.
In a lot of jurisdictions.
So, sorry, I got to know the inquiring mind. So, I know we're in Florida, right? We're recording this. It's coming up that July 1, things that were passed maybe in last legislature or last election laws are coming into effect. So, how often are they changing the bar exams? I mean, is that somewhat fluid for new law, or do they stick to the basics?
Boy, I don't know about the bar exams, although I've heard, you know, even since I'd taken it over a decade ago now, changes each and every single year, right, to what may be tested. So when I was studying for Kansas in particular, they encouraged us as lawyers to try to read. There's like journals that they send out, because they're all the current cases that are coming down through the course of the year. But I got to tell you, you know, in talking about the changes in the law, I think that's really a struggle for me personally as in-house counsel at Pomps Tire, and obviously I'm a board member of the Tire Industry Association as well, and the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. Just keeping tabs on all the changes that are constantly coming at a small business is a difficulty unto itself.
Right.
Much less than applying that as a small business owner to your business. If you're a small business, you know, 1, 3, 5 shops, you may need to know all the same laws that a much larger organization would need to know. And,
right.
and to your point, they can drop at any point, and they're constantly shifting and moving. Just in the employment context alone right now, I know there's a number of wage and hour laws that are just constantly in flux. And business owners have to respond to those, and there's deadlines. But all the while, there's all this chatter that it may get changed or rolled back. That's a difficulty for a small business owner.
Well, it's a good segue. I say in Tire Industry Association, where I think a lot of people think of the training, but I count as the government affairs as being, less sexy, but equally important, in part because, you have these well-intentioned local legislators that, hear something, or let's say, okay, well, let's enact a law, right? Okay, we can fix this by, preventing it from happening again by enacting this law without maybe really being fully educated on it. And so one of the vital roles that the Tire Industry Association plays is, when at that grassroots level they become aware of it, right? If it's something that is going to be a burden to the tire dealer, to the small business, they'll say, hey, listen, there's better ways, right? So I always say they educate rather, try and educate rather than legislate.
Yeah.
Because it is, it can be rather burden. So
yeah.
you touched a little bit because of needing, once you got Kansas City, right? So of course my bride, she was born in New Jersey, but at 6 months moved to Missouri and pretty much grew up. So she's from Missouri, and so I know Kansas City, right? It's Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. So Missouri or Kansas?
I'm on the Kansas side, but
okay.
The one universal cohesive factor, of course, is our Kansas City Chiefs. So,
right, okay.
So that breaks down state barriers pretty quickly.
Well, and even before professional, I know, and I should know this, Kansas or Kansas State for you?
I was University of Kansas Jayhawk.
Jayhawk, okay. All right, so Kansas State. What did I? What's their?
They're Wildcats.
Wildcats.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I don't know well enough. So, I'm gonna jump back to to Kansas City Chiefs here. But before we get off the attorney speak, do you have a favorite fictional lawyer?
I would say, and of course, live on a podcast, the name's escaping me right now, but. In To Kill a
Mockingbird.
Mockingbird, thank you.
Yeah.
The father was always, I believe, very, very thoughtful.
You're going to test my knowledge now. I'm not even sure if this is from Atticus Finch.
There you go.
Was that it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but now I'm hearkening back and trying to remember all the plot lines, right? Because you're on a podcast, so you're stuck with it.
That is true. Yeah. So okay. All right. I didn't know. I was thinking Tom Cruise, The Firm, right? And so I guess I'll ask that question because one of the things as I'm exploring, people in the tire industry is how'd you get into the tire industry? And I think you were kind of, I won't say necessarily born into it, right? But when I made this, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but literally in an elevator ride at a Goodyear event, I was talking with somebody. She was the in-house counsel for Goodyear, and I kind of made this, saying, oh, boy, you probably didn't think when you're going to law school, right, you're going to get in the tire industry. And then I thought about it afterwards, and I saw her later in the conference, and I apologized. She goes, I didn't take anything by it. But I said, I didn't really mean anything. I love the tire industry, right? But it just, I think maybe, as you enter law school, or you decide I'm going to go for law school, you have these visions, probably not realistic at all, right? But being trial law or, the whodunit, or being in front of the Supreme Court, not that you can't dream big or whatever and so on, but what is your path or your journey into the tire industry?
Well, the joke that I tell when I'm in an elevator is that I was actually a Michelin baby. So my father grew up as a salesperson for Michelin.
Okay.
And we would travel all over as he would move up through the ranks with Michelin. So growing up, that was just what Dad did. We'd go in on the weekends and we were in warehouses, and I remember swirling around in the rolly chairs in the office. Just that's what we did. And my summer jobs then growing up were working in the truck wash or as a tire runner, keeping our tire techs out on the road. Just grew up around it. Dad sort of wanted me to, of course, encouraged me to spread my wings and find, whatever was my personal passion. And that's what led me to law school. Out of law school, did the very traditional route, went into private practice, representing community banks of all things. So, feels sort of distant from the tire industry, wearing the suit and tie every single day. And about 3 years later, Dad tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, that thing where I said, spread your wings, go find your own path? Well, we're making some changes here." And by this point, my dad had worked his way into other professions, ended up acquiring Cross Midwest Tire, and had gotten a business partner at the time. And so they were looking to make some changes. So I tell that, I go from wearing a suit and tie every day representing bankers to being the Western Region Operations Manager and General Counsel for a tire company. So my responsibility was the operations of a retread plant, a distribution center, and 5 service centers.
Yeah.
And lawyer, right? And family business, right? You wear lots of different hats, and whatever's going on that day, that's your job.
Right.
So that led me back to the tire industry. And then, things shifted, changes. Eventually, also did a stint as the HR director, given my employment background as a lawyer. And then eventually the business was sold to Pomps Tire, which is where I'm affiliated with now, and a fantastic family-owned organization, very similar to how Cross was a family-owned business. The Wachinski family, great family, gave me the shot and said, "We want you to try out representing us full-time as our first in-house attorney." And it's just been a fantastic journey and a fantastic ride.
How many states?
We're up over 17 now.
Okay.
And recently also sort of acquired an additional business interest, which gives us a little bit more of an international presence on the OE side.
And is that mounting for utility or all I can think of is JLG, the brand, but man lifts or things of that nature and so on. So okay.
Yeah, exactly. So more of a presence in that original equipment space, and JLG being one of those customers.
So with your role in Pomps, I saw, I don't know if it was your acting debut or not, I think I saw it through Peter Kuhn's LinkedIn profile or maybe even Facebook profile for his business, but he did some, I called it a PSA, which is normally public service announcement, but maybe in this case I think it's intended almost internally. I think it'll be shared, but so maybe a Pomps service announcement.
There you go.
On really distracted driving, I believe, right? And did you make an acting debut in one of those? I
did. I had a little Stan Lee moment, right? So it made a cameo in one of my own pieces that I did with my team. But where to start with this? As the in-house lawyer, one of the things I enjoy the most being in-house versus private practice is it gives you that additional latitude that when you identify something in the business that just needs that little extra attention, you don't have to wait for that proverbial lawsuit to come or for it to be just a real burning problem. You can get out ahead of it. And I got to tell you, for any business, driving, and in particular distracted driving, is hands down one of the single greatest threats. It doesn't matter whether you're in the tire industry, you're an HVAC operator, you name it. If you have employees over the road, driving is going to be one of the single greatest threats to your business, and it's got to be addressed. So to that end, a Pomps service announcement, I like that a lot. But we really focused our attention on addressing distracted driving within our business, and I think that from some of the work we've done, some others have viewed the piece as well. And Pete Kuhn is a dear friend of mine, as you are, right? Just from the relationships we build doing the work that we do. Yeah. And him and his team collaborated with us, and it's a fantastic adventure.
They were great. I streamed it, right, had the kids all together, and I shared it in part because they know Pete, they know you. And so, but again, it's just, it's that those little things, the shots, putting it together, the music, right? I mean, it's even the images of the texting, kind of flashing up. It was just a very, very professionally, very well done piece, which again you would expect from Pete and so on. But
yeah, well, two things there that you mentioned for sure. One, it became clear to us that you've got to create an emotional connection with your target audience. If I look at you and I say, hey Keith, I care about you, let's not text and drive. Well, you're gonna probably say, well, hey, thanks, buddy, that means a lot,
right.
and I'll
and
think
about my day.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And you're gonna get in your cab and you're gonna get busy and you'll hear that ding and you're not gonna think about what TJ said to you. So finding a way to make that emotional connection was very, very important. But the second thing you mentioned, and I appreciate this, is that you said you sat down with your family and you showed it to others. And it became clear to us that was actually one of the emotional connection elements as well. That if we wanted to really penetrate the heart of somebody who's been driving since before they were 16, it's sometimes not good enough to just go right at them directly. And so we sent postcards home to all of our families and said, to the Trum family, and added the little QR code in there. And,
That's great.
And the hope was that, if you have a teenage driver or something, that they sit down and look at it as well. And hopefully that moved the needle for a few folks.
Well, and your kids aren't driving age yet. My kids have all gotten there. And, there's that initial euphoria, right, where you're like, hey, they can run to the store instead of me all the time. They can take a younger sister, something like that, right? But then you also recognize the dangers, and as a parent of a driver, right, they can do everything right. It's you're worried about somebody else, right? So paying attention and so on, they can certainly screw up as well. But so it critically important, I would agree.
Yep, my kids are currently young. They're 8 and 6, but they're sitting in the back seat and they're watching what Dad's doing in the front seat. So it's locked and in the cubby, and because I know they're gonna mirror that behavior when they get there, I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So talk a little bit about your involvement and support with Truckers Against Trafficking. It's interesting because I think from my own perspective, right, people hear trafficking and they think somebody being kidnapped and, that it'd be so obvious to see and spot and so on. And yet, if you read the news, it doesn't take much to recognize that there's cases really all over and probably in front of us. And so, I think in the airports you begin to see, like in the restrooms and signs and things like that are more visible, but truckers obviously from traveling through truck stops, rest areas, and so on. It's a unique organization where they've set out to basically put an end to it. But can you talk a little bit about your and Pomp's involvement?
Absolutely, yeah, and thank you very much for bringing it up. It's definitely something that's near and dear to my heart. Just increasingly as I've gotten involved through Pomp's and with others. The first thing is, and you already alluded to this, it's essentially hiding in plain sight. That as you start to gain the education and awareness of some of the things to look for, it's right there in front of you if only you're trained and equipped to see it. And the second misconception is that it's something distant or far away. And the sad reality is that it's present in most all of our communities. And if it's not actively present there, it's passing through our areas. Because human trafficking is essentially about demand. And the demand is sadly present in a lot of our communities. I know we don't like to talk openly about that, but by being trained and equipped, and I encourage everyone who's listening to this to please go to the Truckers Against Trafficking site. There's a clip on there where it says get certified. A small investment of 25 minutes of your time, and it will really, for one, pull at your heartstrings. I mean, just you can't help but watch that training video and not feel an emotional connection to what you're viewing. So definitely encourage everyone to do that.
Perfect. Okay, great. You mentioned Tia earlier, and you've been on the board for a number of years, but just recently were elected and are now the treasurer, I guess, of the association. So, can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Well, so first of all, TIA generally, coming from a small family business, right? We talked earlier about, going from being an in-house private practice attorney to dusty blue jeans, and then, being affiliated with a much larger organization with Pomps. You start to feel like, gosh, I really have my arms around, the industry or what we do. And then you get affiliated with a group like the Tire Industry Association and my work on the board, and it really opens your eyes, right? I mean, just from sitting across from you, right, and AME and the folks at Haltech and all over, right? You start meeting all these different people in our industry, and even thinking through your quib with the lawyer from Goodyear in the elevator, right?
Yeah.
That's usually my response about the tire industry is there's just so many amazing things in our industry that you can have your eyes open to, and I appreciate that aspect of being affiliated with TIA more than anything, and the treasurer thing, that's just my way of doing a little bit more to give back. I enjoy the relationships that I build, and it's just such a great group, and the industry is truly doing some amazing work. I mean, just by way of picking one example out, the earth mover segment is something that Pomps is heavily involved in, but boy, we've seen an awful lot of fatalities out of that particular segment. And I know you're in tune with this because part of what you do is create tools to help make it easier and safer for these technicians to do their jobs. Seeing TIA make the investment in time, energy, resources in really upping the training in that segment, that really makes me proud to be affiliated with the group and the work that they're doing.
Yeah. So the treasurer is a unique position. I'm not going to say you're kind of like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, right? But everybody else moves and advances, and you kind of stay stuck in another year, same thing, but different experiences, right? So unlike those of us who move through the chairs and eventually fall off or ride off into the sunset. I've seen treasure. I mean, in the time that I've been on the board, I really only remember two. I think Tom Fermonic and Mike Wolf, your predecessors. So may have been somebody before Tom, but you can keep riding that wave and so on, right? So we've interviewed Deb Hamlin, and we're going to interview Russ Devens as well, who's current secretary. Mm-hmm. But do you have any long-term plans or goals that you'd like to see for the association?
Yeah, all those names you listed, all dear friends, right? And that kind of speaks to what I described. My only goal at this point personally is just to give back to the industry that's given me so much, and if the treasure is just one way I can do that, then so be it. No long-term plans of setting any new high water marks like maybe Mike or Tom, but we'll see where the proverbial tires take us, right?
Okay, where the tire turns.
There you go. Okay. Heard it here first.
All right, so wrapping up, you touched a little bit about unity rather than division with respect to the Kansas City metro area, right? And so that everybody can, my wife grew up a Royals fan, right? Mm-hmm. But I guess the Chiefs would certainly be the in vogue team nowadays. And so unless you're living under a rock, this past year, you would have known that Travis Kelce, tight end, who also has a podcast with his brother, slightly more viewers than I think this one. But
let's see.
It's early yet, but nonetheless, started dating a pop star by the name of Taylor Swift. I think, to his credit, I think he went to one of her concerts, something to do with beads or bracelets or something, and somehow put it out there that he was hoping to have gotten to meet her to be able to, show, and maybe he was caught dancing or something, and then, you start hearing some things bubble up. But it's crazy for me from a media perspective. Absolute win for the NFL and for all the viewers. And my youngest daughter sat across from me at one point, and she was like, now scoring is, you can kick a field goal, or right, start asking questions. And I just started smiling and saying to her, all right, this is Taylor Swift. She was like, no. I said, you've been on the planet for 19 years and have never, I said, every Sunday I sit and watch football all day long. I said, you've never asked me a football related question.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I guess being right in the area, right?
Yeah.
I think there's no in between. People either embrace it, and maybe you as a girl dad, right? Or just are so done with it. It's not any fault of theirs, right? But can you talk a little bit about T-Swizzle and Travis Kelce?
Well, I'll tell you now that I appreciate you asking this question, because if there was any doubt that my 8 and 6-year-old daughters were going to listen to Dad's podcast on As the Tire Turns, the fact that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is a topic will definitely get them to listen in. And I can tell you that having an 8 and 6-year-old as my daughters, of course, right now, and my wife Katie, we keep up on this
absolutely
very intently, right? So I mean, your comment about the beads, we're well beyond the beads. As of the recording of this podcast, he made a guest appearance out of the VIP tent in London. And so believe me, I am not personally up on this, but I hear all the updates. To the question, I guess I would say a few things. One of the greatest. I love to, on LinkedIn, some of the best content's on leadership and stuff like that. So one of my takes on this situation is their relationship is really goes back to how it started, right? Yeah. And what a great lesson in life that if he really felt moved, to try to build a relationship with Taylor Swift. Good for him for taking his shot. Yeah. Right? Because
the Wayne Gretzky quote, right?
Yeah. What if you just don't, right?
Michael Scott.
You miss 100% of the shots you never take.
You don't take, yeah.
Right? So in life, what if you're the guy who, or girl, or anybody who says, oh, that's out of my league, or that's not possible, and he doesn't take his shot, and good for them, because they appear to be having the time of their lives right now, and it's cool to watch. Yeah. But it all starts with you presume with somebody having the confidence in themselves to say yes and take that shot, and for that reason I kind of do love it.
I applaud it as well, right? Yeah, and I agree that most time people will come up or dream something and they thinking that no, I can't do that, right? I mean, it's your own between your ears, right? That a lot of times will limit. So
yeah, the only person who's ever going to be harder on you is yourself.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, listen, I feel like we've covered a lot in a short period of time, but is there anything that maybe you're hoping to chat about that we didn't address?
Well, Keith, I really appreciate the invitation, and obviously I think a lot of you as a professional friend, but also it's become a personal friendship as well, and maybe that's a great spot to leave it, which is, we're just in such a really neat industry. The tire industry really is so broad, and I'm sure be a stuffy attorney, right, who just sits back and does his job and responds, but boy, there's so many cool people in our industry that if you get out and really build the connections, what a cool industry to be a part of right now.
I agree. I always say it's some of the greatest people I've met and salt of the earth type people. So it's no place I'd rather be.
There you go.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Join us next time for the next episode of As the Tire Turns.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, DJ. Thanks for listening to this episode of As the Tire Turns. We'll be taking a 2-week hiatus for summer break.